welcome everyone. This is Yobel. I'll be your moderator today. I'm the Climate and Clean Energy Campaigner for Gaia Asia Pacific. And today we are having another series of webinar from the Nugget, Learning by the Nugget series. And today we will learn more about biogas at home. It's part of the organic management series. Previously, we discussed about composting, and today we'll talk and discuss more on biogas at home. So here, we have some attendees from Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, India, even Europe. So thank you for coming, and we are happy to have you here. We have we have two listed speakers, but unfortunately, one of them, Michael, couldn't attend the webinar because he had to have an urgent meeting with government in Philippines to talk about budget in city's government. So sorry for that, and for that, Shibu, the other speaker, will compensate for the material, and he will share some more explanation about biogas. So yeah, we will have some session for question and answer, and that will be held from the chat box, not from the chat box, it's from the Q&A. It's on your bottom screen if you're using laptop, and also if you're accessing this from a gadget. Well, Shibu, he is the campaigner of Gaia Asia Pacific, and his experience is more on organic management. He has experience with TANAL in India, which is one of the oldest organization on environmental work there. And today he will share more about what it is or how do we want to treat our organic waste using biogas at home. And he will share that in this session. And we are also live on Facebook, and it's Gaia Asia Pacific. If you want to access this later, we'll also upload it on our social media on Facebook and YouTube at Zero Waste Asia. This meeting will be recorded and shared on that platform. And also we have another webinar on July 11, and you're very invited to join that. It's about a launch or relaunch of our project. It's the Unwrap report. Basically, it discuss and explain us the toxic materials in plastic packaging, and there's a lot to discover in the report. So without waiting for other minutes, here I'll present to you Shibu. He will share the presentation, and don't forget to write your questions on the Q&A box in Zoom or in Facebook. We'll channel it later on. So Shibu, please take the stage. The stage is yours. Shibu, you're still muted.
Thank you, Yobel, and thank you all for joining for this webinar. And a special thanks to the Gaia Asia Pacific team who is facilitating this webinar and is trying to reach out to people through other modes like YouTube video and Facebook. And good morning to those who are in this time zone as same as me, and maybe people in the eastern side, good afternoon. And I don't know who else are joining. Anyway, thank you all for joining this meeting. And this session is mainly focused at organics management, because one, Gaia as a strong network organization in the Asia Pacific region is trying to promote or campaigning for zero waste cities. And one of the major challenge in Asian cities is management of organic fraction of the municipal solid waste. And if you look around the municipal solid waste in especially in South Asia or even parts of Southeast Asia and East Asian region, organic component dominates in the total municipal solid waste. It is something between 60 to 70% is organic fraction in municipal waste in India in many places. It may vary from region to region. Anyway, it is not less than 50% of the municipal solid waste stream. And with the given cultural or social background in this region, most of the waste, like the eating habits are something dependent upon this, and we get maximum organic waste from the households. So that means when it comes to solid waste management, around, see, we can assume that at least 50% of waste is organic, and a minimum of 40% to 50% of it is originating from homes. So that gives this argument, or that gives us this logic or logical move to promote the idea of source level management of organics. That is one from the point of view of a solid waste management issue. So if people start composting or doing biomethanation at home, we can actually solve more than 50% of waste issue in any city or in any neighborhood. So this is a decentralized process at a very small scale, and it is feasible. And if you look around the Asian cities, in many places, this is happening, and this is catching up like a fire. That is the one manage, like when you look at solid waste, when you look at organics management, this is a perspective from the solid waste management side. And at the same time, when you look at from the food we eat, there is a natural cycle for nutrients, and we need to replenish our soils. And that is not happening with many of these modern waste management approach, where waste is being disposed rather than recovered. So when you look at organics being the major component in our solid waste stream, that need to be recovered and that need to be supplemented to our soil. So that is very important to evolve a climate resilient economy or ecosystem. We need to continue replenish our soil so that our food production is also stable. So this is something more important than waste management. So Gaia, with this focus, is trying to create capacity in communities, organizations in the region through our network partners, and do campaigns like awareness campaigns and training programs for volunteers to take this app, so that more people are turning into management of organics at source, maximum at source. And even if it is not happening, it can be at the institutional level or even at the neighborhood level, it can be done. And there are a lot of models available in Asia, mostly in South Asia and East Asia. We have lots of working models around. And even in the urban scenario, we have seen that it is possible. And there are a lot of groups, individuals, and organizations, they made it possible to showcase how organic management can be done in the middle of a very urban and even in the metro cities. So this is not a kind of an issue of, it's not a technology issue. It is mostly a kind of an issue with the attitude or approach of people. So we are here to try to convince the public, convince the people, as well as the policymakers to provide technical as well as policy support to promote recovery of organics from the municipal solid waste stream, so that it can be utilized for other purposes. So last time we had a webinar on managing organics through composting, especially at household level, at very small or micro level composting, and up to municipal level composting. We discussed that in our last webinar. And this we are discussing about biomethanation or biogas. This is one area people have like a lot of interest, and I have seen in many places, like people are curious about it, but people are not trying it at home because they are still have a kind of a they're scared of this. And when it comes to the size of the plant or the availability, people are a bit skeptical about the technology. So in this webinar, I am trying to take you, it's a kind of a very simple walking through the process, just to understand. This is not going to be very detailed or very that scientific or deep dive into the technology of biogas, but this is more or less a kind of a layman's view, where how to like understand a biogas plant. Like this is something which will enable you to make a decision when you go for a biogas plant, or this will also help you to analyze a biogas plant and its efficiency. For example, you are in a position to work with your community or work with your local government to set up a waste management. And looking at the waste stream, maybe this session will help you to suggest a proper type of biogas plant, or whether biogas plant is feasible or not. That is the first thing. It is not that you have to go for biogas plant everywhere, but looking at the waste stream, that is very important. Looking at the waste stream, can we help our policymakers or our government officials or the institutions to take a decision whether they should go for biogas plant to manage their organics or not. So that kind of a very practical information, that is what I am trying to share with you. So let us just move to the presentation. So biogas, we all call this as biogas. So this is a fuel for kitchen, and it is from our kitchen waste. So it is possible. This is happening around. Like we all need fuel. We normally use LPG. People often like mistake it as like or people often compare biogas with the LPG. So we need to understand some very basic facts. Like for example, LPG is a combination of butane. Yeah.
Sorry for cutting you. We haven't see your slides in case you're describing one of your slides.
Okay. I am just okay.
Yeah.
Right. Here we go. I think right now this is in your screen.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah. So biogas, when we talk about biogas, most of the people think about, they just compare it with our conventional LPG gas. And nobody is actually comparing it with our old stoves. So there are like people think in that way, and they compare it with the higher version, and then to argue that the biogas is not efficient. Anyway, so LPG is a combination of butane and propane. It is not just butane and it is not just propane. It is a combination of, it's a mix. It varies from region to region based on the climatic conditions. So let us come back to biogas. So you like most of the people who are here, who are using Windows 10 as your operating system in your computer, might have seen this picture as your desktop background picture. I think in last month, it appeared in last month. I don't know how many of you have, just out of curiosity, have looked into this picture. So this is a picture from northern circle, like in the northern hemisphere. These are the bubbles, frozen bubbles of methane in a lake. And this is being described in some of the novels of Leo Tolstoy. And in Russian, I think rural, or in the Russian language, they call it as koshka, means cats. Because when you look at these bubbles, it looks like the puck marks of the cats. Basically, they are methane bubbles erupting from the bottom of the large ponds or large lakes. And in the evening, there is the youth have a kind of a hobby to just go to the frozen lake and then release the gas and burn it. So that's a kind of a cultural practice. But we don't see that in the Asian region much, but we know that in our paddy lands or even our swamps, in the water, you can see these bubbles just coming up. And it is methane, and it is a result of anaerobic digestion. So let us go to understand what anaerobic digestion. In the last session, we discussed about aerobic composting, where the microbes are decomposing organic matter in the presence of air, importantly, in the presence of oxygen. So anaerobic is just opposite to it. Again, microbes are helping us to decompose the material, but the process happens in the absence of air or in the absence of oxygen. So it needs a kind of an airtight space or a container to get it decomposed. So anaerobic digestion is a process in which microorganisms break down biodegradable material in the absence of oxygen. And anaerobic digestion is a renewable energy source because the process produces methane and carbon dioxide rich biogas suitable for energy production. Also, the nutrient rich solids left after digestion can be used as fertilizer. So the thing is that we have to understand biogas is not, or biogas is not methane. It is a mixture of gases where methane dominates. So people often just think that a biogas is methane. No, biogas is a combination of other gases, including carbon dioxide, and there is some part of water vapor is also there. So it's a mixture of gas in which more than 50% is methane. So that is the first thing which we need to understand very clearly. And in the process after the biogas, like the biomethanation, if you are doing that biomethanation in a container or in a very controlled situation, you will get slurry discharged from the process, the digested matter. That is kind of a, that can be used as a kind of a fertilizer. In many places, it is used along with irrigation. They call it as fertigation. So they just mix the slurry with water for irrigation, so that two things happens in one place. So let us understand what is happening in biomethanation. So basically, if you look at our organic waste, the kind of we call it as biodegradable waste, whether it is cooked food or it is meat waste or it is dry leaves, whatever it is. So there are the three major components. They have carbohydrates in it, they have fats in it, and proteins. So this is first converted into carbohydrates, get converted into sugars, fats converted into fatty acids, and proteins converted into amino acids because of a it's a biological process which we call hydrolysis. So when carbohydrates, fats, or proteins, you soak them in water and keep it for some time, this will start degrading into, or they just get converted into these three major components. It is not that it is completely converted into that, but it's a kind of a process where that is slowly getting converted into sugars, fatty acids, and amino acids. So that happens. That is the first stage of a biomethanation process. And secondly, these sugars, fatty acids, and amino acids, with the help of the microorganisms, they get converted into carbonic acid, alcohol, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, ammonia. So there are three gases are getting generated. Like hydrogen is there, carbon dioxide is there, and ammonia. And acids, like there is carbonic acid and alcohol. This is the stage which we call acidogenesis, because there is an acid is being formed. And this process can be recognized very easily. Like you will get a very strong smell. Sometimes it's very pungent smell from the facility because of one, because of ammonia, and two, because of this alcohol. So it's almost like a kind of a fermentation. And from this stage, the things will get converted into, again, hydrogen. Hydrogen will stay. Hydrogen will be some more hydrogen will be added from the process. Acetic acid will be formed, and there will be carbon dioxide. So we call this as a kind of a acetogenesis. So this is another stage in the biomethanation process. And the next level, again with the help of a colony of bacteria, this is converted into methane and prominently carbon dioxide. And we call this as methanogenesis. So if you look at the entire biogas formation process, there are 4 different processes. And I just want to remind you that these 4 processes ideally should happen in 4 different chambers, so that its efficiency will be increased. But for the practical reasons and to maintain the cost to minimum, most of our biogas plants used for households or institutions are single chamber. And all these processes are happening within the chamber, within one chamber. So it's a kind of a continuous process, one to another. And this is not a kind of a linear process. There are forward and backward processes also happening based on the speed of digestion and based on the feedstock, based on the what are the kinds of materials we are feeding in. And ideally, if you look at from a perspective of a waste management supervisor or a person who is managing a waste management facility, you have to choose nitrogen-rich organic material for biomethanation. I mean, which have, like, if you look at the organic material, like the nitrogen carbon thing, some materials are dominated by carbon and some materials are dominated by nitrogen. For example, if you look at cooked food, that is nitrogen rich, or meat waste, or fish waste, or the poultry waste, all these things have more nitrogen content in it. But if you look at the dry leaves or grass trimmings or tree trimmings, they are carbon rich. So they do not help you to generate biogas. To generate biogas, you need nitrogen rich material. So it's very easy to identify. It's very simple. Like you just look at the waste and you know which waste will make a smell if not managed in 2 days. So that is nitrogen rich. So that is the rule of thumb. Like if you look at the waste stream, like in a packet of waste lying on the roadside, and you know that on the second day, if you are getting a bad smell, that means that is nitrogen rich, and that is best for biomethanation. So if you are looking at your waste stream and the household level or at the neighborhood level, when you want to suggest a technology, look at the characteristics of your organic waste. If your organic waste is highly dominated by nitrogen rich materials like cooked food, meat waste, or some vegetable waste, fruits, things like that, then it is always good to go for biomethanation. And even at your home, if you got more cooked food waste or meat waste, then you can go for biomethanation. But your quantity of waste is very low, and most of it dominated by just vegetable peel, and there are zero waste people who do not waste anything, so they just eat everything, so there is no food left over. So it is unviable for those kind of families to set up a biogas plant. So a biogas plant, before picking a biogas plant, you need to just think about the quantity, the availability of waste, and its its continuity as well. And when we talk about biogas, I told you that this is not just methane. 50 to 70% will be methane, and carbon dioxide will form something around 30 to 40%. Hydrogen will be there, like 5 to 10% of hydrogen, and 1 to 2% nitrogen. 0.3 percentage of water vapor will be there. This 0.3% of water vapor is something which we need to look into, because this get condensed in the transportation tube and may choke the tube from transporting the gas into the stove. Then hydrogen sulfide. So there is a small, like a slightly, there is a smell of hydrogen sulfide in biogas process. If you remember, when you do composting, you get a kind of a very bad smell like rotten egg. That is because of that hydrogen sulfide. So hydrogen sulfide is a kind of an index of anaerobic digestion. When you do composting and when you get the smell of hydrogen sulfide, that means you are not doing aerobic composting. Somehow your composting have changed into anaerobic digestion. So it should happen only in biomethanation. So that is something which we need to remember. So this is the basic science to understand what is happening in a biogas plant or what is happening in a biomethanation process in nature. And we are utilizing, or we are going to apply this process for managing our organic fraction in our waste stream. So to start with, we need to have that bacteria to initiate that bio digestion or the biomethanation process. So normally in Asian region, most of the people use cow dung, because cow dung carry most of the, like they got most of the bacteria used, or bacteria needed for biodigestion or this anaerobic digestion. So the easiest way is to just make cow dung slurry. By mixing fresh cow dung. You have to ensure that that is fresh cow dung. Fresh means it need not be the days. cow dung, but it can be 2 or 3 days older, or that is okay. But 1:2, like 1 part of cow dung should be diluted with 2 parts of water. So that makes a slurry, and that you need to fill it into the plant, which is going to be used for biodigestion or the anaerobic digestion. And similarly, chicken manure from the poultry farms or pig manure from the piggeries can be used, and but there you need to add more water, 1:3. That is 1 part of manure plus 3 parts of equal volume of water need to be added to make that slurry. And this slurry, when you keep it in the plant, that actually the starter slurry, from that the bacteria get cultured, and that is going to digest the food waste we are going to feed. So fill the starter slurry on like after filling it in the biogas plant. On third day, by third day there will be some gas generated in the plant, but that need not be biogas. That will be mostly carbon dioxide, and that won't burn. If you try to burn it, that will not burn. So on third day, you have to open the valve and release that gas from the plant. Almost 90%, you have to release the pressure up almost up to 90%, and then close it down and keep it for next 3 days. So on the 6th day, you do this again, and on 9th day, you also do this again. Maybe on the 9th day, you can try burning this gas. If you can see that flames coming out, that means your biogas plant is ready to take in waste. So that also means that you got enough bacteria to operate, that the anaerobic bacteria needed is ready. So that is the signal. So this is very simple. You fill the container, and then when the container gets filled with some gas, open it and then try to burn it. It won't burn in the first 3 to 6 days, and maybe after 9th day it will have more methane. So once it start producing methane in it, then it is ready, and then we close it and then start feeding it with organic waste. To understand how these biogas plants are made, there are different models. Like you can relate it to what you have seen in your neighborhood. In most of the places now, being like the plastic containers are available in abundance. So people go for these used drums or used barrels or water, including water bottles, to convert organic waste into biogas. So it's very simple. Like if you look at a biogas plant design, there is a digester. So that is the main part of a biogas plant. So you need a place to contain all the organic waste for digestion. And to fill it with material, you have an inlet from where the waste goes into the digester. And there is an outlet which moves out the digested material outside the plant. And if you look at here, there is a dotted line that shows the water level. So this is called water sealing. This is the slurry. So this is the initial slurry here. So that actually cuts water getting into the plant. So this is actually making this container as what we call anaerobic or oxygen-free space. And this is a gap, and this is the place where the biogas is getting collected, and the collected gas will go through from this gas vent. So this is the simple design of it. When you want to understand a biogas plant, okay, this is the major things. Like there is a digester, inlet, outlet, and a gas vent, and there is a water sealing. If the water sealing is not proper, the air, the oxygen from atmosphere will enter into the digester, and that will kill all the, or that will replace the anaerobic bacteria with aerobic bacteria, and that stops all the biomethanation process. So this is something very important you need to understand. There are different types of biogas plants available in South Asia and even in Eastern Asia region, and it's very simple at the household level. So one very popular model which we call as a floating dome biogas plant, as the name suggesting, the gas holding part of it is floating, that will move upward and downward. So when you look at that plant, this is the digester, But when you look closely, you can see that, okay, this inner part is the digester and there is an outer shell as well. So this is a tank and there is a tank. So it is a small tank within a large tank. And there is a gap in between two tanks. So the inner tank is the digester. The outer tank is the water sealing tank, the shell. And you have an inlet piercing through both tanks into the digester, and there is an outlet going out from this place. And we call this outer shell as water jacket. This is meant for sealing it with preventing air going in. And the gap is the place where this inverter tank, there is an inverter tank which operate as gas holder. We call it as gas holder. So when the digester here, when the gas is formed, that get collected in this area, and that is held by this tank, the reverter tank here, and there is a small vent to take the gas out. So this is the major part of a what you call a floating dome biogas plant. If you want to see its operation, it is like this, the tank, and you have this material, the inverted gas holder. And when you start feeding it with waste from the inlet, so that comes and that get released in the bottom. And when it get digested, it will get filled into that the water level up to the mark, so that no air will get into the tank or from this side or from that side. This is a very simple animation. And once these waste get into the digester and that get digested into the digester, like the material, that just flows out. At the same time, gas will generate. The generated gas will push the holder up, and when you release the gas out, the drum will come down. So this is a drum. So this drum moves up and down on a daily basis. Like when the gas is full, the drum goes up, and when you utilize the gas, so the pressure inside the plant goes down, so the drum comes down. It's a very slow process. You can see the quantity of gas generated with the height of the drum, like how far it is stretched, that means that much gas is available. So this is the simple floating dome biogas plant. And these are the photographs of some of the very simple. So this one is a portable floating dome biogas plant, because these are portable. You can just buy in the market and then just fix it at your home. It's very simple as installing a water tank in your home. And there are very cheaper, like less expensive models where, but it is partly fixed part, because you have to dig a hole on the ground and then you have to line it with a concrete ring, and then only the gas holding dome is moving. And this is the inlet. You feed the waste from here, it goes into the subsurface. The advantage to have the digester part of biogas plant into subsurface, like below ground level, there is an advantage, because in the biogas, the biomethanation process, there is a heat, and that heat actually helps the biodigestion process. So if you keep it in below surface, like below the ground, so that heat will remain. If you have a portable type in the open like this, most of the time, like when it is raining or when there is a winter, it will actually cool down the temperature inside. So the process will be very slow. But here, even in the seasonal variation will not affect much on this kind of model. So this is a floating dome biogas plant. And it is not that expensive. Like in Indian conditions, it costs something around 20,000 for this when you get it at home at these current prices. And this may cost something around less than that, like something around 15,000 or less. So this is the kind of floating dome biogas. And there are fixed dome portable biogas plant as well as fixed biogas plants. So here, the gas holding part do not move. It stays stronger. It stays there. So its structure is like this. You have a digester here. So there is no moving parts in it. So that is the advantage of this plant, because you need not worry about getting stuck or getting wear and tear. So this is a simple model where the chamber have two separations. There is a bottom part and there is an upper part. So there is the digester in the bottom, and then there is a slurry balancing tank. So that from the digester, the slurry moves up and then get filled here. So with its weight, it actually pushes it down the gas. And then this is the inlet. So inlet is actually going through the slurry tank. It's a pipe. And it get released at the digester. And there is an outlet that is from the slurry tank, and there is a gas vent. So what happens is that so this is the water level, or the slurry level in the digester. So it comes up to this, and there is a space. So when the digestion happens, the gas will be there, and the gas will exert a downward pressure on the slurry or the material. It's in a liquid form. So that actually pushes the slurry through this pipe to this tank. And that actually raises the water level here. So there will be a level of slurry here and here, and this level moves up and down. Instead of the drum moving up and down, this slurry level will move up and down. So when there is a pressure, like when you open the gas vent, when you release the gas from here will move through this gas vent and goes out. That makes the pressure low, and then the entire slurry will come down. And when there is gas is formed, there is a downward pressure by the gas, and that makes the slurry moves up. So this happens. So the slurry is moving up and down several times a day, and that also gives a kind of a stirring effect. So that mixes everything together here, and that is a kind of a model which is being used. There are simple portable model like this is available in the market. And this is a larger version of the same model. This is from Pune. This is a huge model which feeds something around 5 to 10 tons of waste per day. These are the plants which feed something around I think 2 to 3 kilograms of waste per day. So this is fixed dome portable biogas plant. And this is one which we called Dinabandhu type in India. Dinabandhu is named after Andrews, a British who was a disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, and his engineer who actually designed and implemented first biogas plant in India in Mumbai in a leper colony. And then the India government also started promoting this for the rural development. So it's a fixed dome type. So part of it, like more than like a 2/3 of the biogas plant is underground. Only some part is on the top. So the digester is it's a kind of a igloo model. It's made of bricks and it's a igloo model, oval shaped. It's a kind of a globular structure. So there is a digester, there is an inlet. From inlet, it comes to the ground. And there is an outlet here. And the outlet's bottom is opened here. So it's like in the previous model, the slurry moves here into the outlet, this part, the slurry balancing tank. There is a gas vent here. The slurry balancing tank is here. Sorry, I'll just go back. So when you feed waste into the digester, it will get like digested in the process, and there is gas get collected in this part. So the gas exerts a pressure, downward pressure, that makes the slurry moving into the tank here. So that becomes a kind of a balancing effect. So when the level goes up, the pressure mounts up. So when you release the gas, the pressure goes down and the slurry will come back. So there is a sideways movement, like from here it goes in and then comes back. So this happens on several times, and finally, when it is full, the entire slurry will get released step by step through this vent. So this is fixed dome biogas plant. This fixed dome biogas plant, we have two models in India. One is very fixed to the ground, where you have to do a kind of a site level construction. You have to construct it by using cement, and there are portable models are also available like this. It's available in the market right now. And the next comes about like when you talk about the gas, like you want to store gas. So there are different models, like in a slurry management tank, there is a gap in the biogas plant which gas gets stored there, or in the floating dome, the gas is collected in the drum. But even though in some places people want to store extra gas into other forms. So there are balloons available like this, and even there are transporting gas in balloon, like you create a common biogas plant in somewhere and then generate gas and then collect that gas into a larger balloon and carry it home. This is from Africa, and this can be connected to your kitchen. So that is also there, but it is some places in it is practical and some places it is not. And there are simple biogas plants using water tanks, the regular water tanks, and gas is collected into plastic bags. And from the plastic bag, it goes to the stove. And to maintain that pressure in the bag, they fill the bag with water. So the water exerts a pressure against this wall, so that that pressure gives actually squeezes the gas out to the, so it maintains a kind of a pressure for flow of the gas. This is another model, but this is only possible for institutions where they have larger gas tanks. And this is a 5,000 liter tank. So they compress the biogas. They just compress like using the normal compressors in our used in the for the automobiles, like for filling air in your tire. The same compressor used to just fill it and then keep store the gas for the kitchen. That also gives more pressure. But when it comes to gas utilization, initially I mentioned that biogas is not just methane. There are other materials, other gases as well. So one of the major challenge is the water, like the water vapor is there that need to be filtered out. So that water filter is a very simple mechanism where you get the gas into a small container, maybe a kind of a small can, and which have some water in it, release the gas into the water so that water vapor get mixed with the water or get dissolved to the water or get condensed in the water, and the released gas will come through the outlet gas. So this is a simple mechanisms used in the household level biogas plants to uh, increase the efficiency of the biogas which we are getting. And at the same time, the H2S, the hydrogen sulfide, is also another challenge in the biogas that need to be removed. The normal thing is that people use a wool filter, like a steel wool. Steel wool is collected from lathe machines or the any lathe workshops. You can collect this steel wool. So fill it with like in a container and then allow the gas to pass through that steel wools. Then this hydrogen sulfide get oxidized with iron, and then that is being removed. Most of the hydrogen sulfide is removed. Or in larger facilities, people use to make pure methane, they use uh, other substances like hydroxides, like calcium hydroxides or things like that. So that is a bit costly part. And silica gel is also used for removing water content in the biogas plants. So calcium hydroxide is used in the larger plants to remove hydrogen sulfide. And the next component is about deciding the size of a biogas plant. So this is the one place where, as a consumer, you may be stuck. Okay, what is the correct size of biogas plant for my purpose? In most of the places, like the vendors, they just persuade the consumer to go for larger, because that is more profitable for them. The smaller biogas plants do not give that kind of a margin. So we need to think about, again, the quantity of waste. So the size of biogas plant is decided by the factor of the quantity, the average daily quantity of waste. It is not that one day's quantity. It is, you have to just think about like what is the average daily the waste that can be used for biomethanation. It is not just the quantity of all waste. So that is decided. There is a simple calculation. See, for this biomethanation, number of days for retention of the material is 40 days. You need to retain organic material, nitrogen rich organic material, in an airtight container for 40 days to get biogas. So that is the basics. So if you have 1 kilogram of waste per day, that means you have to retain 40 days waste in the chamber. And it is not just waste, you have to add equal part of water. So that means 1 kilogram of waste is almost equal to 2 liters of space. So 1 kilogram of waste means 2 liter and plus 2 liter of water. So you are actually adding 4 liter of material into the biogas plant. So your biogas plant should have a space of 4 liter into 40 days. That means something around 160 liters capacity. So that is for the digestion part and or the digester part. And when you feed all these things, there will be some gas, and there is a kind of a relation with the total volume of material fed and the gas. So that comes around almost 1/3 of the volume. So that means 160 plus 1/3 of 160. So it's something around 200 liters, maybe less than 200 liters capacity. So you need a total capacity of 200 liters. So the size of biogas plant, including the gas holding area, should be 200 liters. So this is the way we calculate the size of a biogas plant. So for a household at which generates waste from 1 kilogram to 5 kilogram per day, you need a kind of a capacity from 100 liters to maximum 1000 liters. So it varies between the type of waste is being fed and the type of technology you are using. And when you look at the institutions hotels, restaurants, or maybe a school, or maybe other government offices or a private office where they have many people, they have canteens operating there. So we assume that they generate something around 10 to 50 kilograms of waste suitable for biomethanation. Then you have to go for 2000 liters to 10,000 liters. So when it comes in 1000 liters capacity, we start calling them as cubic meter. So 1 cubic meter biogas plant means its capacity is 1000 liters. And when you say 2 cubic meter, that means 2000 liters. So and so. And when you do the calculation, it is okay for calculating at the small scale. But when it goes to the industrial level, this calculation will not work, because in larger plants, the technology is slightly different, the process is slightly different. So you need not to have this much space to do the digestion. And when you look at the these are some common thing about biogas plants, do's and don'ts. like uh, do you have to feed. Let's see, the biodigester is almost like our stomach. If you feed your stomach with something which cannot be digested by the stomach, which is something opposite to the bacteria in your stomach, then we will have problem. And when there is a problem for your stomach, it happens suddenly, but to get it cured, you will take at least 2 or 3 days. You cannot just switch it on and off. It is same for biogas plants. Biogas plant run into trouble through 2 or 3 days, maybe through a week period, but we may not be able to understand it because something happening inside. And when we see the indexes outside, when we see the signals outside, then you have to correct it. And to correct it, to get it right, you will take another 1 week. So we need to be very cautious about managing biogas plants. So that is the first part. So that makes it mandatory for a person who has some interest in biogas should go for a biogas plant. Otherwise, the lazy people, they should not go for a biogas plant, because if their laziness is going to pay into a series of troubles. Normally, you can feed it with the food leftover, rice cooked water or veggie wash, or the rice washed water are good for biogas plants. Vegetable peels, rotten vegetables, fruits, meat, fish waste, all these things can go into a biogas plant. But please don't feed it with leaves, dry leaves, hair, or feather from chicken, or excess fruits. Like if you add for example, a biogas plant with a capacity of 2 kilogram of waste per day, and in one day you just got some free rotten fruits from the nearest fruit store, So you thought, okay, let us feed this with the biogas plant. It is in some 10 kilograms or 15 kilograms. So when you add that into your biogas plant, suddenly the process changes, and there will be fermentation instead of biomethanation. When fermentation happens, there will be carbon dioxide and not methane. So that disrupts the process. So excess fruits, like fruits in smaller quantities, it is okay, but fruits in large quantities, the large here means the compared to the size of the biogas plant and compared to the capacity of the biogas plant. Coconut has coconut shells, egg shells, bones. These things will not be managed by a biogas plant. Don't expect that to manage. And paper, plastic, cloth, or any other thing, soil, again, no, please don't feed your biogas plant. That will go wrong. Oil, like if you got oil, excess salt, lotions, chemicals, all these things are detrimental, and all these things will kill the bacteria colony inside the biodigester, and that will create, that will stop the biomethanation process. And one more thing which normally people ran into trouble is the thing is called shock loading. Shock loading is that means peaking of quantity of waste way above the capacity, or feeding something which decreases the temperature suddenly. For example, you got a biogas plant, 2 kilograms of waste per day, that is there, and in one day suddenly you just got, like there was a function at home, there was a huge lot of food left over, say some 10-15 kilograms of waste is there. So your capacity is 2 kilograms per day, so you are just dumping 20 kilograms of waste into that biogas plant. That is going to decrease the temperature inside, that is going to disrupt the bacteria colony, that is way above the capacity of the biogas plant. So that will slow down the process. If you are lucky, the biogas plant will regain its strength in 1 week's time. But if you are not lucky, then you have to do it, like go for a troubleshooting, like you have to remove everything and then start once again. And sometimes people also feed like cold stuff, like from some waste, like when you do clean up your freezers or the refrigerators, there are some cold vegetables or some cold fish or things like that there. When you feed it, that also brings down the temperature, and that slows down the process. So this is called shock loading. And even untimely loading of waste is also called shock loading. Like if you are maintaining a time, for example, you are maintaining like at 10 o'clock every day, you are feeding the biogas plant, then you maintain that. If you are doing like abrupt feeding, like 10 o'clock one day, and next day it is 12 o'clock, and maybe in a day 3 or 4 times feeding, that also create problem for the biogas plant. If you look for that good practices, I would suggest that, see, this is a biological process where microbes are operating, and you can increase the efficiency by reducing the size of the materials you are feeding. Like if you can shred it, or if you can pulverize it, or even if you can do a kind of a pre-treatment. A pre-treatment is very simple. For example, if you got a biogas plant at home, you just keep a separate bucket for collecting all your biodegradable to be fed to the biogas plant. So when you have rice washed water, or water left over from the rice cooked water, or veggie washed water, you just keep that water in the bucket, and then you add your cooked food waste, or the food leftover, whatever thing you want to. So it is in a liquid form, so it is already there in the bucket. So keep it overnight. So by overnight, that will get slightly fermented, and in the next day morning, when you feed it along with add some warm water to make it little bit warm. So that make it easy for the bacteria inside the digester. So this is a good practice. So you keep your waste overnight for a day. So it's a continuous process. So today's waste will be fed tomorrow morning, and when you feed biogas plant, ensure that this is before noon. That is good. Like before noon means like before noon, after the sunrise. So when there is some like a temperature is building, and by noon temperature will go up, but after noon the temperature will go down, the atmospheric temperature will go down. So if you are going to feed in the evening time, so that is going to reduce the temperature inside the biogas plant, and the chance of getting temperature from outside is also less. So pre-treatment is a good practice to avoid a lot of problems in maintaining a biogas plant. And stabilized feeding, you have to you have to schedule your feeding for a time, and there should be a regular interval, and there should be a regular quantity as well. Like you have to stabilize. If you got 5 kilograms of waste on a day, in a particular day, just split it into two and then feed it in 2 days instead of feeding it into one day. So you need to stabilize the quantity as well as the timing. And when the gas is generated, if the gas is not utilized, that will increase the pressure in the biogas plant, and that will spill out all the slurry outside in one go. So that will be a problem. Like you will have lots of very smelly slurry around. This is something which you need to be very careful. Like people who have biogas plant at home, and you feed waste onto the biogas plant, and then you go on vacation for say for a week, and when you come back, by the time whatever you fed inside the biogas plant, you can see that all around. And maybe your neighbors will be welcoming you with some other bad words as well. So this is a problem. So you have to ensure that biogas plant can be recommended to households where people are not moving out for more than a week. Otherwise, you have to shut down the biogas plant and go. Shutting down a biogas plant is very difficult. There is no switch to shut down the process because it is a biological process. And the slurry comes out, need to be managed. That is very rich in nutrients. So it is always good to do a kind of a composting, co-composting. We call it as co-composting. You just mix the slurry with the dry leaves in your neighborhood. If you got dry leaves in your courtyard, like from the tree trimmings or things like that, or any other waste which you cannot feed into the biogas plant, you mix this slurry in a tank outside the biogas plant and get it composted, and that compost is very good. Otherwise, you use this slurry as a fertilizer, but before applying to the plants, please dilute it with water, because this is a very active solution, and sometimes smaller herbs or smaller shrubs may not be able to take the heat. So you need to dilute it with a minimum 10 times of water. You get the slurry, dilute it with the minimum 10 times of water, and then apply. You can apply it on the soil. You can also apply it on the leaves of the plants. That also gives more like yield. So post treatment of slurry is also very important. So these are the major good practices. And you need to, you may have to, like you may encounter some of these what you call troubleshooting scenario, where the plant, like there is plenty of gas, but it is not burning. That means instead of methane, you got maximum carbon dioxide. So there you have to redo. You have to just flush out all the food waste inside, and then you have to fill it with or you have to add more cow dung slurry to get more bacteria. And sometimes there is no gas. No gas means the digestion is not happening. Either there is not enough material, or there is a leak where air is getting in, or the water sealing is not working. And sometimes you also find gas tube is shocked. That means the water vapor inside the gas got condensed, that tube is got condensed, and that is blocking the movement of gas. Or you have to check with the burner for getting your flames right. And if you want to restart the plant, you have to just feed water. Just feed water for at least 3-4 days, so that this will get neutralized. Whatever things inside the biogas plant get neutralized, and then you remove the entire sludge and then restart it again. So this is the major troubleshooting tips. Normally people ask about, can we bottle biogas? Yes, it is possible. So when you ask this question, I will say this is yes. Density of biogas is 1.21 4 kilogram per cubic meter. Like for example, if you take 1,000 liters of biogas, then you are getting something around 1.21 kilogram of biogas. The methane content is just 0.73 kilogram, and its calorific value is 4,700 kilocalories. And if you look at the table, you can see that at what pressure this is being filled. Like for example, propane, which is C3H8, 123 psi, Butane is kept at 33 psi after making it into a liquid. LPG is at 213 after converting that into a liquid. And if you want to make if you want to compress methane into liquid form and then fill, then you need something around 4,641 psi. That is possible only in an industrial situation. But if you look around, even the CNG is not sold in cylinders, but it is sold in through pipe connection. That because this huge amount of pressure, you need that kind of cylinders, and that is not economically viable, or it is not practical to have them transported. So that is the major challenge, to compress clean methane into a cylinder for a longer duration. But you can just pressurize it into a smaller quantity, maybe for 3 days, or maybe for a week's gas can be compressed without converting that into liquid. And density also says it all. Like for all, for propane, butane, or LPG, the density is above 1, but for methane that is below 1. And if you look at the energy again, propane got higher, 93.2 megajoules, and butane 111.4 megajoules, compared to methane. Like if you look at methane, that is just 38.7 megajoules. So its energy content is less, and the pressure is you have to compression is more. So that makes it not economically viable to compress, liquefy, and compress biogas methane into cylinders. So this fact you have to accept. One. So it is very expensive at small scale. It can be it can be done at the industrial level where you have to have that quantity of biogas. You just think about the storing, say, tens of thousands of liters of, or at least 1 to 2 tons of gas has to be stored, and then only you can go for this kind of compression. So that is only possible in huge industrial mechanisms, like in Europe. They have such industrial biogas plants, but in India we don't have that kind of larger biogas plants. But we have some biogas plants where they do a kind of a bottling, but that bottling is not similar to bottling of LPG or butane. And so it's very expensive. That answers the question about can we bottle biogas. So we can actually compress biogas into smaller quantities, and that can be used. So that is there. So I'm just leaving it here. I think I took more than an hour, and I think I covered most of the part of the biogas plant, and now I am open for questions. And thank you for your patience to be with me.
Well, thank you so much, Ibu. Actually, I learned a lot about this material. It feels like going back to classroom, learning all the technical stuff. But it's really useful. To my experience, that most of the organic management, the failure are not with the design, but with the operation. So people tend to, do mistakes on the operation because they don't really understand the process. So there will be failure for organic management. And you have explored a lot of explanation from what is biogas, the design, the scientific process behind it, and what's the benefit from each type of the design. And at the last, you mentioned about what to do and not to do, and how to troubleshoot things. And that's very insightful. So now we're open for questions. We have several here. So in the Q&A box, actually, the first three are one question from Mr. Suresh. The question is, what happens if biogas is not used but generated in a biogas plant and leaked to atmosphere, as it is methane concentrated gas and CO2 having higher global warming potential, and it will impact the environment, especially for I think it's about abundant biogas plants. Yeah, can you answer that?
Yeah, obviously it is true. Methane is a known greenhouse gas. So whenever the gas is not utilized, it is advised, and it is mandatory that the gas has to be burnt. Before releasing it, you just use a burner to burn it, so that methane is not getting released along with carbon dioxide. That is the only solution for it. And it is not advisable to release methane or carbon dioxide as a raw gas into the atmosphere.
Okay, so hopefully that answered the questions. And another one is from Saraswati. I want to know about the tentative cost of each type of biogas plant. Can you share some estimate on, I believe this is capex or investment?
Okay. The cost varies from place to place. It depends upon the accessibility of the manufacturer or the supplier. In India, generally, a smaller biogas plant of so you need a minimum of 500-liter capacity to operate in our environment. That cost between 7,000 to 12,000 rupees. And if you are going for a 2 cubic meter, that is 2,000-liter capacity made of fiber reinforced plastic, that costs something around 20,000 rupees. But if you are going for a fixed dome like the Dinabandhu type, you can only start with a minimum of 3 cubic meter biogas plant. That may cost something around 10 to 12,000 rupees. So that varies from place to place. And in India, fortunately, there are government subsidies to bring down the cost, where the consumer get subsidy under different schemes, like under animal, this what you call under agriculture department and under, I think, energy department as well. And now, right now, in many places, the subsidies are available under waste management fund.
Okay, and just to clarify, the 2,000-liter capacity, it's not for the waste, it's including the water sealer, is it?
Yes, including the gas holding, it is 2,000 liters.
So usually people when sell biogas technology, they say this is a capacity of 5,000,
Yeah,
2,000 liter. It's not
right,
mentioning
right.
about the waste. It's about the capacity of the tank itself.
Yeah, mostly in the market, biogas plants are labeled based on the capacity. So when you go to the market, you can see 1 cubic meter biogas plants, 2 cubic meter biogas plants. For the households, it is maximum up to 3 cubic meter biogas plants. That means 3,000 liters capacity. When they have the people, like the household have some cattle and maybe they are running some vegetable shop or some meat shop, so they will go for 3 cubic meter biogas plants so that they will have enough waste material to feed in. Normally, the households can go for 0.5 cubic meter, that is 500 liter, that is more than enough. And slightly larger families with something around 5 to 7 people at home, they may go for, it is better to go for 1 cubic meter, that is 1,000 liter capacity. That takes care of almost the maximum quantity of waste.
Okay. So yeah, I hope that answered the question for Saraswati. And next we have from Sangeeta. Are biogas plants are a good option for big vegetable markets in Kerala?
Yes, there are, I think if you go around Kerala or even in Tamil Nadu, many markets have started large biogas plants, primarily to manage the waste emerging from the vegetable market. So the vegetables are collected and fed into the biogas plant to convert that into gas. The major problem is that the plant is located in the market, and the gas, there is no utilization for gas because nobody stays there, no cooking happening there. And so in the most places, after installation of the biogas plant goes off just because there is no utilization or proper management is happening. But what I would suggest from that Asian perspective, in vegetable market, lot of vegetables are available, and they are, if we can collect them in a cleaner manner, that can be a good source of feed for animals. See, that is the primary thing which we can do. And then you will get cow dung or the animal manure that convert material into something, and even that can be fed into the biogas plant. So you need to think about what is the best available opportunity. If there is no necessary, if you are setting up a biogas plant for vegetable waste, you have to also think about how to utilize. Is there a demand for utilization of biogas? If there is no demand for utilization of biogas plant, please don't go for biogas plants in such situations.
Okay. Well, there's one maybe clarifying question. You mentioned about utilization of gas. Um, is that something that how do you use the biogas in household? Is it connected into one house, or you can spread it over several houses?
That depends upon the size of the biogas plant. If you are using a smaller biogas plant up to 1 cubic meter, maybe 2 cubic meter or 2000 liters capacity, it is always good to have one hose connected to one house, maybe maximum to two burners. More than that, it is not possible to run it because you won't have that kind of that enough pressure to or enough gas to burn in that biogas plant. If you have, say, for example, if you have a 500-liter biogas plant and you connect it to a stove with a single burner, that single burner can burn for maximum 2 hours. So only that much gas is generated in that day. So when it comes to 1 cubic meter, you may extend it up to 4 hours. So that is a slow flame with the less heat, but that is good for slow cooking, like cooking rice, things like that. So if you have larger biogas plants, like in the market or in the hotels, you can actually collect the gas and then connect through hoses. You can give it to supply to many houses. There are in places, there are some places where they have connected it to couple of households from single biogas plant. That is possible when the gas is like the quantity of gas is high. If it is at a household level, it is always good to have, and maximum to one burner or maximum two burner. More than that is not economically feasible, and that technically it is not viable as well.
Yeah. So if we build one in a market, we need to find out what's the usage for the gas, and that should be considered into the design process. Thank
Yeah,
you,
that
Sigit.
that should be the first question. Yeah.
Yeah. And next one for Fasanta, do you have any chances of explosion or fire in biogas if the biogas was not released periodically?
Yes, biogas. Normally, people always have this kind of fear about explosion of biogas plant. For that matter, I have. I think you remember that chart which I shown about that energy content in terms of calories. So it is very less compared to any other gas like propane or butane. The chances of explosion is very low, maybe almost nil. But still, there were a couple of explosions happened in this country. One was in Kerala. So that was a kind of a mistake from the operator, and it was uh, the plant was in actually operation because they were actually setting up the huge biogas plant for slaughterhouse waste. And so the process was not completed. So at the same time, the person was doing a welding job on the gas holder tank. So that actually created an explosion, and that person died. So that was the only serious fatal case I know. Otherwise, if the fire gets into a biogas plant, that fire will cause ejection of all the slurry in the biogas plant, but there won't be any serious issues. There is not much cases. Even using biogas plant, transporting them through a hose is also safe, because unlike the LPG lights up with a spark, but biogas cannot be lighten up with a kind of a spark, because the methane content is low and the methane is very slow. So that is very safe, and you won't be able to do that kind of a damage. So need not worry about that. The chances of explosion, that is almost 0% when it comes to biogas plants.
Yeah, so I think that's covered in your first slide. You mentioned that biogas is not pure methane, and even the final result need to be cleansed or purified to get high calorific value. And even you have cleansed it, the calorific value is not as high as other natural gases. So I hope that answered the question. Next, this is more on how to operate biogas with feces or cow, pig, human, uh, yeah, without vegetable. Is it possible? I've seen some being operated in mixed, design from feces and also from vegetable or waste.
Yes, currently in many places, people are using mixed waste. Like for example, in many municipalities, they collect household level waste, like from kitchen waste, as well as waste from the markets, waste from the slaughterhouse are mixed, and they are fed into the biogas plant. And there are places where they have household level biogas plants, which is connected to toilets as well. So there are two inlets to that biogas plant. One is for daily feeding of kitchen waste, the food waste, and another connection is from the toilet. So the human waste is connected to the plant, and that actually yield more biogas, provided you are like, the only worry is about the medicines you are taking in. For example, if somebody in the home is using antibiotic medicines, then the biogas process will be slowed down, because that obviously, for the obvious reason. But there are successful models where toilets are connected to biogas plants, and that gas is being used. Though it is practical, just because people have some mental barrier, or people have some kind of a negative attitude to this, there is technically, scientifically, it is safe, and it is clear there is no issue at all, because biogas, and through the biogas process, it actually kills all the pathogens. There were a lot of tests done in biogas plants using pathogens in lab conditions, and they found that in the slurry you won't find that pathogens, just because of the pH and the temperature inside the digester. So it is always safe, and it is always good to connect your toilet before connect. And the sludge can either the sludge can be used for fertigation, or it can go to the toilets. The only area where you need to take care is that when you clean your toilets, if you are using lotions, then you should close that valve to the biogas plant. Otherwise, the toilet cleaning chemicals may disrupt the biogas plant. So normally, when people do this, they will have a valve there. It's a kind of a V. One connection is to the septic tank or to the sewage line, and one is to the biogas plant. So when they are not, when they are cleaning, they just close the valve towards the biogas plant and open it to the sewage line or to the septic tank, and they clean the toilet. And after that, when they use the toilet, then they just reopen that valve. So that is the thing. So it is, piggeries are the best place to generate biogas. Cow dung, there are a lot of in rural India, there are a lot of, in even China, Vietnam, people use, like people who rear cows, they go for biogas plant because it yields a huge quantity of biogas plant, and it is very easy and it is cheap.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of agricultural or piggery use the manure for biogas. It's more common in agriculture rather than waste. I think it's quite new for people to use waste. And yeah, I hope that explains um, what you asked, Jackie. So next, we're running out of time. We'll try to make it fast. From Fasanta, how many burner can be used in one biogas plant on 1 meter cubic capacity?
Maximum two burners, maximum two. But I would recommend to go for just one.
Okay, so that's one stove or one burner.
Yeah, one burner.
Same from Fasanta, any special type of gas burner required, or you can use normal stove?
Normal gas stove burners may not work properly, because for biogas, you need the quantity should be slightly higher to get enough flame. So you will get special burners. The difference is that in the special burners, the holes will be slightly bigger than the normal ones. So you can buy it at the shop. You will get biogas burners as well.
Okay, so that's to compensate the purity of the gas, because it's not pure, right? Yeah. Okay. From Leah, what is the most challenging thing in India to increase public awareness in practicing biogas at home? How to solve that based on your experience?
The major challenge is availability of space and the maintenance part as well. major challenge is space. Second part is technical support. For example, when you have you have a refrigerator at home, it is functioning because you have a technical person out there to give you a technical support. You can call a person to do a kind of a repair. But for biogas plants in India, the major challenge is that the service providers come and they install the biogas plant. After that, they vanish. There is no guarantee period. There is nobody is out there. So this can be solved only by we call it a kind of training technicians in each panchayat or in each municipality, or at least at the block level. It can be a kind of a livelihood for youth or even women. Train them to do this kind of a minimum troubleshooting, just changing parts or things like that. So that becomes a kind of, that should be part of the entire project of biogas plants in India. And second, we need the cost is slightly higher, and we need more subsidies. And right now, I think government of India is not giving much subsidies to the biogas plants as part of the thing to promote LPG. So I think we need to, if we can provide subsidies, financial subsidies, as well as creating livelihood or the technical support at district level, minimum at district level, so that people will go for biogas plants.
Yeah, so buying the unit is one thing, but to operate it well, it's another thing. So you have to make sure both are in the same place. And not to forget to mention that it requires pure organic material, which means you need to segregate it from the first place. So without segregation, maybe it's a bit tough as well.
Right.
Last one from Saraswati. Which
That is Sravasti.
Yeah, Saraswati. Which
Sravasti.
Sorry for that. I'm trying my best to read the name. But basically the question is, which of the types of biogas plant can be made locally at household level?
I think right now there are very simple models which do not need customized things. So they just work on the existing water tanks. Because right now in India, Nepal, or in the South Asian region, people are going for these ready-made plastic water tanks, overhead tanks to be used at home. So there are people working on it to just modify it to make it into biogas plant. That is the easiest thing. That also brings down the cost, and that also makes it the maintenance very effective. So that will be best for household level.
So you can make your own biogas from materials you have at home. Basically, that's the case, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So we are out of time, and actually we are on time. So happy to have all of you here. Thank you, Sibu, for your great presentation. It really gives a lot of insight, not only on how to build one, but what's the pre-requirement, and also what you need to operate it well, so you don't have problem later on. So yes, we'll have another session from Learning of the Nugget series webinar in Gaia Asia Pacific in this month. Can you change the slide? We have that slide. Yeah, so here is it. July 16, 2 p.m. Manila, this time, the same time, on unwrapping plastic food packaging. So if you want to learn more about what's in a plastic food packaging, because it is the most, the most number of plastic waste goes to packaging. So what is in it? What's the problem? What can we do on it? You can visit this and register on the link. We'll also share it on email. And this recording will be shared on YouTube and our social media, and also in Facebook. So you can follow our social media on Gaia Asia Pacific or Zero Waste Asia for Instagram. And also you can visit our website, noburn.org or zerowasteworld.org. We have a lot of case studies on zero waste, also some material on waste issues. So that's all. Thank you, Shibu. You can get in touch with Shibu at shibu@noburn.org. Well, glad to have you all here. We'll see you soon in the next Learning by the Nugget series. Thank you.
Thank you all.